begun to knock out mosquitoes?
I have never had a joint account with anybody in my life. Not my ex-wife, not my children, nobody. And I will refer that to the Privileges Committee.
What about the culture of people getting into office and not being effective?
What people become prime minister said, Lucia, have been the most ready.
Let's do it this Wednesday, because if it's Wednesday, it's Newsmaker Live. A very good evening to you. Welcome to another edition of Newsmaker Live right here on the DBS television. My name is Timothy Polian. We'll be together until 10 o'clock this evening, at which time we'll be having played our clip that peaked. We'll highlight it during the course of our program to conclude. My special guest this evening is a youth political activist, and his name is Joshua Harrow. I'll be turning my attention to him in just a moment. But first, there is this tragedy which occurred yesterday in Corinth. Many of you would have heard about it by now. The homicide of a 27-year-old mother of 3. And as we normally say from time to time, this one has sent shockwaves throughout the St. Lucian society. And just in case you missed the DBS News World this evening, we have a report by Zane Romulus.
The family of Alana Bernard has been plunged into mourning after she was mercilessly gunned down on her way home from work. Her mother recalls that she had only minutes before gotten off the phone with her daughter before the tragic incident unfolded.
She had just called me to tell me go and pick up the baby for her in the daycare, Marysil. She came from work early and she was just close to her home. When I reach, I see how much vehicle there, ambulance. I see people. When I pass a security in the supermarket, say, look her mother. When I reach high up, I see my daughter on the floor.
Reports indicate that the perpetrator had been waiting for her as she walked up the street to her Corinth family home, where 2 of her children eagerly awaited her arrival. She would never make it to the house, which lies just meters away.
Some eyewitness that see the scene said the car turned there, then the car come down and shot my daughter once. And after she fell, they give her another 3 bullets on the floor there again.
The 27-year-old mother was killed a day before her court appearance. 2 years ago, she was reportedly sexually assaulted, and the suspect remains on remand.
She had to go to court back because that happened 2 years ago. I don't know why they come back behind her.
According to her loved ones, Alana was known for her vibrant spirit and fun-loving personality. She had only 2 days before her demise celebrated her 27th birthday.
She's a nice girl. She didn't no trouble with nobody.
She's a good person. Even if she have her ways, but she really good. She was my only company.
Alana left behind 3 young children, an 8-year-old and 5-year-old daughter, and an 11-month-old son. According to relatives, Alana went above and beyond for her children and was in the process of preparing to celebrate the birthdays of her youngest and second child in March. Her children now have to grow up without their mother. Alana's mother has called for the harshest penalty under the law for her daughter's killer.
It's time for them to hang them. So they will stop. Try and do something, hang them for you to see if it will go wrong. Even though you do that, yes, government trying to do everything and it's the same thing.
The fatal shooting has sparked national outrage and sorrow, with many calling for swift justice. One community member decried the current state of lawlessness in the society.
We hear shots all the time. It is just so scary. People have a lot of anger. They carry a lot of anger, a lot of hatred. You have to be careful. What do you say? How do you talk to people? How do you say things? What do you say to people? You in a bus, maybe, or another public place, and somebody sits and squeezes you. You have to keep quiet, because what tone should you speak? What do you say? Because it's almost as if you have no right.
Crime Prevention Minister Jeremiah Norbert joined opposition leader Alan Chasney in expressing sorrow over the tragic incident. Norbert urged members of the public with any information about the incident to share it with the police.
This heinous act has not only devastated a family, but has also shaken our entire community and our country. I extend my heartfelt condolences to the family of the bereaved and friends during this unimaginably difficult time. Such acts of violence are utterly unacceptable and they have absolutely no place in our society. I want to assure the public that we are working closely with law enforcement agencies to ensure that those responsible are brought to justice swiftly. We are committed to implementing comprehensive strategies to prevent such tragedies in the future, including strengthening community policing and promoting public awareness about crime prevention. We are also providing support services for vulnerable individuals.
Police, meanwhile, have launched an investigation into the slaying of Alana Bernard. For the DBS News World, Zane Romulus reporting.
Thank you very much, Zane, for this report, which was filed this evening and aired this evening during the DBS News World. So yet another young person has been gunned down. My guest this evening is a youth political activist. He is Joshua Harrow. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, Tim.
And full disclosure, you're aligned to the opposition United Workers' Party.
Yes, I am.
Your thoughts on the violence that is taking place in St. Lucia, the gruesome nature, and the fact that most of the victims as well as the perpetrators are young people?
My point of view, Tim, was coming from a point of sadness, because when you see so many young people dying, when you see so many young people engaging in acts of violence against each other, you begin to wonder what is the cause and what is the solution. And every time these acts are committed, you hear, okay, it was gang related. What are the solutions to deal with the gang issues here in St. Lucia? We cannot continue to give press statements from the preposition stating that they're saddened by the events and we're going to look into the matter. We need tactical solutions to deal with this issue, because if we do not take these actions, young people will continuously die. It saddens me that these individuals will never see their future. This young lady was 27 years old, had her whole life in front of her, loved her kids and had so much potential in this world, and her life was cut short. How are we going to vindicate this situation? How are we going to address this at hand rather than just giving a simple press statement? My view is that we need to take action. We cannot sit down anymore. We cannot just write messages on Facebook. We must do something. And honestly, if we don't do it now, maybe our numbers this year will be greater than last year.
But in terms of the young people of St. Lucia, if they were to take the lead on this particular issue, as they should, because you have a National Youth Council, although it is comatose, what do you think are some of the prescriptions and recommendations you as a young person would want to make to the authorities, that powers that be in tackling those issues? Because those incidents are becoming a lot more brazen.
Firstly, we need to do searches. We need to go in the community. We need to go and search our young people. Even in the schools, we find that students are bringing weapons to school, and it's a scary situation, not just as a young person, but even a young teacher. So we need to do that. We need to do programs that target anger management and emotional intelligence to help young people deal with situations like this, helping conflict resolution, time management, and all of these different things. We also need to have sit downs with our representatives, and I'm not going to say political leaders, our representatives in our constituencies, to have a sit down and lay out a plan in how we're going to rally our people to support these initiatives and work on after school programs, keep them active, job training, whatever we can do, because we feel like we're young, we don't have the power. Yes, we do. So these are the first steps that we have to take. If not, protest action is the next phase. If we don't see anything happening, we need to address the police commissioner, write a letter, have a sit down. The National Youth Council needs to have a sit down with the Prime Minister, with the opposition leader, with the police commissioner, and all stakeholders in this country to facilitate this discussion. You are the National Youth Council. You are the biggest arm of youth representatives. We need to have this. We need to stop taking the political approach and say bash this person or bash that person. If we continue to bash and continue to have these separate entities, like we're having some major division in St. Lucia, what's end up going to happen is we're going to incur more violent crime situations and lose more young people. So we take the first step, the peaceful steps. We can write letters, we can have meetings, we can do whatever we have to do.
But the only thing this has been done, this has been done for a while now, in terms of people complaining, in terms of people calling the various talk shows. In the heyday of newspapers in St. Lucia, I remember people writing to the various newspapers in terms of the Crusader, the Voice, the Star, the Mirror, and so on. And the authorities, unfortunately, they have not heeded. It seems that we should enter a new phase. You made reference to searches in schools. That's always something that is very controversial because this debate surfaced a few decades ago, and relatives and also parents of children who are deemed to be well-behaved individuals do not want their children to be subjected to what they see as something that is humiliating, searching their school bags. But you're stressing that this is something that should be done.
Tim, I can talk about my first-hand experience. When I came back to school in Form 3, all of the students were lined outside the gate. We were wondering why we're outside of the gate, why we can't get in. We saw our deans stand, the male, 3 of them on the left, 3 females on the right, and they were calling us in one by one to search us, to search our bags, to make sure that skirts were below the knees, make sure pants were not skinny, all of these different things. It even made news. It was on DBS at Vibote Secondary School. So I honestly believe that we're in a time where anything is possible. We cannot just eliminate this concept because there are a lot of violent crimes happening in schools, stabbings and all of these different things. Children are carrying weapons, they're hiding it. Who may have a cutlass in their pants, walking in the school and hiding it. Sometimes they might give it to the girls to hide it. We never know. We must make sure that it's not just our students, but our teachers, our staff. We have to make sure everyone is secure, because you may not want to search and patrol, but you have to. Even when you go to the airport, you get searched. You may not like the process, but you have to make sure everyone on the plane is safe. We must make sure when we have a school of 600, 700, 800 students, everyone is taken care of. I understand people may not like it, but that's the honest truth. We're living in some turbulent times. The person you least expect might be the biggest perpetrator of the incident and may go away scot-free because you will never think it's them.
Now, the other incident, as was the case with Alana Bernard, again, who was shot and killed violently yesterday over in Corinth. We tend to forget about those people who are left behind. People who are grieving. I mean, yes, the mother, sister, if you have brothers, etc. But what about in this case? What should happen to the children in terms of the nurturing that is required? You're talking about 3 children.
Tim, there is so much that can happen because we don't really know. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to try and give some delusional outline. We really don't know. As a government, we need to intervene to make sure that these kids are looked after. We need to have our social workers make sure that they're okay. We need to monitor where we're going to send them. Who is able to take care of them? Is the mother? Is it a family member or somebody who can watch after these kids? And we also need to monitor their mental health. If they lost their mother by gun violence, some people, they'll grow up and feel enraged and want to, come back into the streets and find vengeance. Some people might fall into depression. We really don't know the outcome of the future because anything is possible. But what we can do is make sure that they're okay, monitor the household. If we have to leave them with the mother, make sure that the mother has sufficient funds and allocations. Get them in school, make sure they are able to talk to somebody and feel comfortable talking to somebody to help manage this until they get into adulthood, and then even go further with psychological training and evaluation to make sure they're good and help them go through this, because these things are long lasting. It's nightmarish for these kids. So we have to make sure we as a community, we as a nation and as a government stand in solidarity with them and ensure they have our undivided attention in helping them cope with this situation.
But why do you think young people are so silent when it comes to speaking out and tackling critical issues? Do you think that they feel there isn't a place for them, a place at the table, so that they could provide their input?
Tim, most of the time when young people come and speak, most of the time you'll see it's on a political platform. There are no youth programs or youth shows that are viewed as much as political shows. And even then, there are not many shows for young people where they can come and air their grievances and their concerns. You live in an era of victimization, and we've seen it happen with Miss Natoya Popo when she's a recipient of the Youth Economic Grant, but she's criticizing and making suggestions because she realized that there are some flaws within the system. And we watched her get bashed left, right and center because she spoke on her political views. She spoke on her viewership of the government's administration of the country. And even that now, when you do speak as a young person, you're shut down, because either you're too young to understand the way the country works, you haven't been in politics for the longest time, or you don't have enough experience. So now when you continue to devalue young people in every sense, then they begin to shut up. There are a lot of young women who go through sexual abuse and they don't talk about it because they're silenced, because they're fearful of their lives and their families if they speak about it. And this is a huge problem. If you silence the voice of the young people, you silence the future of the nation. And when we silence our youth and we prevent them from speaking about matters of grave importance like sexual abuse, political viewership, or matters of the nation, you create an unstable nation where the future is going downhill and you don't have any development whatsoever.
Do you think that accounts for the fact that it is being suggested that young people are just not interested in politics in St. Lucia?
That's false. That's a false narrative. Whoever is saying that, they haven't met young people yet. Young people, we are interested not only in politics but geopolitical development. I'll give you an example, Tim. I was at a very popular restaurant with a group of friends. We were discussing geopolitical matters. Even before Russia and Ukraine battle, we said that it will happen the way that it's looking. We sat down there and the manager stood by us listening to us talking. The waitress came, listened to us talk. Upon leaving, the manager stood there and watched my friends and I and said, we've never heard young people speak on those matters. We never heard young people go so much in detail of not only criticizing but providing policy solutions. The waitress told her daughter and met us in town 2 weeks later and told us that she told her daughter about us because she was astonished. So to think that young people are not interested in these matters, it's false. The question is, are you willing to listen to young people on those matters and think that we have the same capacity to sit at the table with you? That matters.
So therefore, how do you ensure that we create a platform for young people so that they can come out freely? And it boils down maybe again to the same victimization, the same labeling that is causing young people to be so detached, so far removed from what is happening in the country, especially of a political nature. Do you think that we have sufficiently bold young people to come forward, as is the case in a number of other territories, let's say closer to home, Jamaica, vibrant youth movement in those countries, Barbados, Trinidad, and so on? What is preventing this from taking shape in St. Lucia? When things happen, young people to come out. I know that many people have given up on the National Youth Council, but that's outside of this environment. Do you think that young people have what it takes, muster the courage to come forward and speak out on national issues without being fearful of being labeled?
Tim, young people, we always have something to say. We always have a thought, an idea. The question that we have to ask is, do we have a supportive government to back that? Tim, you have been a victim of the Sushi Girl incident, where young women who are affiliated with Rush Clark and who support him as a young candidate went to rituals for their usual sushi. They met you there, and all of a sudden they're receiving hell and high waters in the government right now because they were seen with Rush, or they seen for yellow shirt, and they're being called the Sushi Girls. So the question we really need to ask is our government supportive of youth speaking out? Is our government supportive of our young people taking a stand? If so, wouldn't you as a government provide an opportunity for having a youth show that is neutral and they can come and express their ideas and concerns and you take notes? Do we have that? And Tim, let me go back to my days as a youth leader. When SLP was in power, we were summoned to a conference at Big Gardens to discuss mental health. At that time, I went for an incident where my grandfather actually committed suicide. And that was on International Men's Day. So I had a lot to say. The then Minister of Health was Alvina Reynolds. It was a 2-day workshop, Tim. The minister came on and spoke on the podium. For 2 days, we hadn't seen the minister after that. We as districts, as student council presidents and head prefects advocated. We haven't heard from the minister since 2 elections passed. Nothing. No response, no take notes, not sit down primarily and have a discussion in the ministry, nothing. So yeah, you think we don't have anything to say? We do. Question is, are you listening? And will you listen attentively and effectively carry out the solutions? That's what we...
But do you think that the United Workers' Party stand out? Because, I mean, we've heard the same criticism being leveled at previous United Workers' Party administrations in terms of ensuring that they highlight the issues that are impacting the young people and not just basically utilize them or use them in the run-up or during a general election.
Well, Tim, I'm here, so boss knows it's not going to work like that because we will make some noise. But what I've said not only applies to SLP but also the UWP as well, that you have to take note that young people are the game changers. We are the ones who determine the outcome of these elections. We are the ones driving the future. We are the ones helping to pay the pensions of individuals who are in their elder age. So you cannot negate us. You cannot get rid of us. We are here and you are going to acknowledge us whether you like it or not. The question is, are we going to receive you with open arms, or we are going to receive you like we're on a battlefield? That is the other thing. So you can either sit down and listen, or we can play the same game you're playing. The choice is yours. We're on the same level playing field.
But earlier you said that it's a fallacy that young people are not interested in politics, but the evidence does not prove that. When you see, for example, you see the young people under hustings. I mean, they are in the company of the politicians, the candidates contesting, they go on campaign and so on. But you don't see them taking a leading role after that, in terms of being in the Senate, in terms of being on boards, and in terms of being in the cabinet of ministers. Those are reserved for, for lack of a better term, the senior citizens. Those persons who are deemed to be veteran politicians who have paid their dues. Why do you think that young people are being neglected to that extent?
Well, Tim, we can look at it from major expectations. Number one, experience. Our young people train in leadership and debating and policy management. Two, public speaking. Are they able to speak in public? Because a lot of young people are shy. I mean, we watched our youth parliamentarians killed it in the House and they did fantastic. But when you go on the floor, they were extremely shy and extremely nervous that they made a few errors. And you know, if this was a parliamentary chamber, you know the preposition would hit them or the opposition will hit them. So that's nerve-wracking. But also, this is a part of enlightenment, and like you said, you don't see the youth, and I like that you made that point, because this is where we're going to be making that change. Even us as a United Workers Party, where soon you will see me in the chambers, very soon. So we have already begun that process. I as an example, Ms. Popo and many young people who are coming on the platforms to speak. So we have taken this into account. We understand that young people feel as though they're not being heard. But let me tell you, the chambers is a real battleground. It's not easy. So if you want to come in, it's not like you cannot. You just need to be ready for a real battle inside there.
But why do you think when, on rare occasions, young people are given an opportunity to serve, to enter the political arena, maybe on rare occasion as a candidate, maybe to serve in a cabinet and so on, that they're no different from the more seasoned politicians? In fact, you just see them automatically towing the line and the status quo is maintained. They mimic what is being done by the veteran politicians. Why do you think that is the case?
If you put a bad apple in a basket, eventually all the apples will become contaminated. When you have a new young candidate and he's the only young candidate on the scene and he's being pressured by his seniors, automatically you're going to go according to what they do because you want to stay relevant. Because a lot of people don't understand, when you reach inside of this political scene, it's a much different things. When you stand alone on your own agenda, sometimes you can be seen as opposing your own party. Even if you're with them, you stand on your own agenda, and that can cause you to maybe lose votes or lose your perception from your party members or whatever the case might be. So a lot of them tend to lose themselves in the politics and not apply themselves to the governance, and we see that happen within our parliamentary chambers. So honestly and truly, it's hard, and I understand where someone was coming from. I went on the ground with one of our candidates and they say that politicians, they're all the same, no candidate is different, and I understand that, and I've seen a young candidate go in and become just like everybody else. But now that has become a lesson where you must stand your own ground, even in your party. No matter what they tell you, stand on your belief. And if you get dismissed, then this promotes the ideology that they're not for the youth. And I'm sure no political party wants to do that.
Do you think that the St. Lucian electorate would normally take young people seriously when they enter the political arena? Do you think, I mean, based on what you see, based on observance and so on, do you think that the senior citizens in this country, people who are mature voters, do you think that they would want to give the nod readily to young candidates?
Of course, Tim, and I've been on the ground through Grosley, Cashville Central, Ansbury, through many constituencies, and they all support the idea of a young person going up for the seat because they want a change. If you've seen the same candidates over and over for 20 years and the island hasn't changed and we're still acting like we're pre-independence, then you're going to welcome a young person with fresh ideas. The next question is, will the party receive that same information and nominate that candidate? That's the next question. Because if now you as an organization choose a candidate, make sure it's the candidate the people want, not the party want. Because those are two different things, Tim, and that's something you have to recognize. Now, people will think that you're young, so you're not experienced, you have to wait until you're 40 and you this. No. Because right now, the people who did that, they're causing the chaos right now. We are the solution. We are the antidepressant. We need to come in now to solve what's happening before all the chaos leads Helen to the Great Depression. So we need to receive our young people with open arms because they have the ideas. The question is, are you open-minded and willing to put your ego aside, your age aside, to listen to something new? Because many people put their age and their egos above their solutions and think that their age is validation for their own opinion and their own justification of why older people are much better than younger people. And that's not the case, where we see young people making major strides and changing the world.
What do you think about the selection process of the Nadukas Party in terms of selecting young people? One of the young individuals who has already been selected and endorsed, as a matter of fact, is Mr. Rosh Clark. As far as you're aware, if I don't know if you are within the inner circles of the UWP to know this and to understand it, what did it take for him to be endorsed? And readily at that, he was endorsed quite early.
Well, with everything, there is a selection process, there's interviews. Like every political party, there's interviews, National Executive, Island Council. So it's not just the executive who choose. No, it's everybody who sits down and they have a vote and they choose. So that's how it's a very democratic process. Rosh Clark being chosen very early, and I remember I had a meeting with Rosh Clark before he was selected, and we gave him tips, we gave him pointers, we gave him everything that he needed to really go out in the game. Because we're not going to be selfish in our party from one young person to another. We're going to help him take down El Quapo, and we're going to make sure that it happens effective and immediately. Rosh Richard out. So we're going to do what we have to do. So when he was selected, I was happy. I was proud to have a young person in Central running. Central is a very youth-oriented constituency and it's the heart of our capital. And he has a vision for the young people of St. Lucia. Of course I was ready and I endorsed him well. And we as the United Workers' Party, it wasn't hard to choose. It wasn't hard to say that his energy was so vibrant. It was there. It radiated. And he took all steps to make sure not only that he was selected, but he's going on the ground and doing what he has to do.
What do you think of the tit-for-tat rhetoric that has taken place? Quite heated over the last few weeks between Rosh and the incumbent.
Tim, it's kind of like this. You cannot keep pricking somebody and expect them not to respond eventually. The question that is are you ready for what's coming back your way? And that's what, because people would say he's a bully. That's what they'll say about RF. He's a bully and whatever. But Rosh has shown a level of maturity that he understands the political landscape. He's not going to let you continue to prick him and go for his family members. He's going to stand up for his belief. He's not a little shy boy. He's a representative, not a politician, a representative. And I'm going to explain later why I said this.
You might as well explain.
You see, we as young people, we're not politicians, we're leaders, we're representatives. Those politicians are the people in the cabinet bashing each other about their personal lives and all of these other things. We didn't come here for that. We came with an agenda. Get the job done and go out our homes. Ensure our people are safe, go out our homes. We have nothing to gain from this. If we wanted to, we could have gone elsewhere and lived life, but we're here and we're fighting for a valuable cause. A lot of us have left jobs that we love to come and do this. So when we say we are leaders, we, Rosh, myself, Natoy, we are leaders. We fight. We don't stand down and bow to no man on this earth. We only bow to God, but we will stand up for our youth. Rosh is a leader. The other people are politicians, and you can see it in the way that it's being governed in this country. They have a political mindset when they should be running a nation, and we've seen it.
But this is said quite often, but no sooner somebody joins, enter the political arena, they have some great ideas and they want to be selfless and look after the interests of the young people and the rest of the nation. They join the merry gang. and they do exactly what they preached against when they first presented themselves to the electorate as this particular individual who was new at the game, who was selfless, and so on. How can you convince people that young people, when they enter the political arena, they will not change along the way? They will not get contaminated.
The question is, do you know your candidate? That's the first grounds, because there are some signs with some individuals, but do you know your candidates? Now, there are people who are very grounded, very rooted, and very humble. There are people who, and let me, before I go there, let me break it down. When a person enters government and they're a minister, Tim, you understand that schedule is extremely hectic, because not only are you a minister of government, but you're also a parliamentarian. You also have a constituency to run. So how you may get them when they're running is not how you get them in government, because they have so much to address. But it's also us holding them accountable and holding them to the T, whether you're in the political party or whether you're on the ground as a member, because people forget that they have the power to make or break these politicians. And a lot of the time, some politicians get so swell-headed that they think that they're above their people. No. So if you see something up, pull your candidates aside. Have all the validations, the verifications that you try to reach to them, and hold them accountable. But I am going to hold Rosh accountable in government. Definitely, I will be holding him accountable. I will be holding other young candidates and other individuals accountable for their actions. And if anyone knows me, I don't hold my tongue. I will speak my truth, and I'll say what I have to say. Whether I like it, whether you like it or not, I will say it, and I will get it through the thick skulls of people who do not want to listen. So you will see me very often. And if Rosh does something, I will pull him aside. If anybody else does something, I will pull them aside and address. And if you don't change it, well, you will be blasted by me. Simple as that.
Is it overly optimistic in terms of Rosh winning the Castries Central seat in the upcoming general election? But don't forget, he's going up against a political juggernaut in Richard Frederick, who won that seat by a little over 600 votes. Why are you so optimistic?
Tim, I believe in living life with optimism no matter what. I worked on a campaign for the 2021 election as well. I was optimistic too. I don't like to be a negative Nancy.
But I suspect you were not successful.
Oh no,
in that campaign.
No. I mean, come on, Tim. You saw the figures, but I don't believe in operating in negativity. I know he's going against RF, and that's a battle for the ages. But you cannot bring negativity to a person who has sacrificed a lot to be here. So you have to be optimistic. You are who you surround yourself with. So we're surrounding Rosh with positivity. So no matter what the outcome is, we're surrounding him with positivity. But we believe that he has what it takes to win that seat. And we believe that he can move El Guapo. It seems that, El Guapo is a bit froggy and looking for a princess to kiss him to turn him back to normal. That's what it seems, because Mighty Feisty going on the show and calling out your people in Central. Mighty Feisty trying to command the police commissioner. Mighty Feisty. Sometimes I wonder if it's Pierre or him that's running the government. And that's pretty much a good example of why some people need to go. That's a good example of why we need to rush him out and bring in a young person who understands the needs of the constituency and who's willing to work and has people who will hold him accountable, like myself and Ms. Popo and several young people within the party. So I want to be optimistic. I don't want to be a negative Nancy, and I don't want to throw him in a ditch and say, no, you can't. No, we're going to bring positivity, we're going to light the torch, and we're going to light the way for our candidate to secure that seat.
The big question is whether you have any intentions down the road to contest general elections in St. Lucia. That question I'll be posing to you in just a moment. You are watching Newsmaker Live right here on DBS Television. My guest this evening is Mr. Joshua Harrow, a youth political activist. He is aligned to the opposition United Workers' Party. Stand by, we'll continue the conversation and your calls in just a moment.
I said, hold on, St. Lucia, get set for Ignite 2025. It's all happening on Friday, February 21st, over at Level Grounds in Dunnery. Admission, Tier 1 tickets cost $150, Tier 2 tickets $175, VIP portal service only. Performing for the very first time in St. Lucia, Amani. Yes, you heard right, Amani. But on the islands where you want go. But wait, all you think we're done? Also performing live, Zerima,
want let for man cause him not understand how it feel when night come and him not give a none.
Together with St. Lucia's very best artists and DJs. Gets open from 7 p.m. Get tickets over at Roots Unisex Barber Salon on Block E, shop number 3, on John Baptist Street in Castries. And Q4 at Mugs the Barber on the Larishus bus stand. Also get tickets at Vice City in Denry and online at St. Lucia.
However you choose to show your love to that special someone, do it with a DBS Love Note. Call 453-2705 for more information.
What people become Prime Minister of St. Lucia have been the most readied of all of them.
So again, you were ready now, then you were ready then, yes. Dr. Anthony, even then.
Even then, ready.
And then
Alan Chasley, and Von Lewis, and John Compton, and George Charlton have been the most readied.
Because of what? Your years in politics?
Because my experience, my ministerial experience, based on ministerial experience, I've been the most ready.
You're watching Newsmaker Live on DBS Television. Coming up, your calls. And of course, my guest this evening is a youth political activist aligned to the opposition, UWP. His name is Joshua Harrow. Any political ambition, sir?
Of course, Tim. I'm not going to hide the fact that I'm interested in the politics, especially the Ministry of Education. I hold that ministry dear to heart as a former youth parliamentarian who represented Ministry of Education in preposition and opposition. Now, I always say this, people, I'm not a politician. I am not a politician. I am a leader, and there is a difference. I do not have time for the antics, the back and forth, and all the nonsense. If you want drama, I suggest you watch HBO, BET, because I don't have any of it. I come to do a job and go about my business. Simple as that.
You say you have a passion for education, and I think you told me earlier on off air that you were once an educator.
Yes.
Why education?
I mean, come on. Education is the lifeblood of this country. Education is the root for creativity, expansion, and development. We have a poor education system. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it. It's very bad. And I said this even as a minister, and I was speaking earlier, Tim, to you, and I said I had a plan. For instance, let's say we expand the time of our education system from 8 until 4:30, and then school ends at 2:45, a 15-minute break until 3 o'clock, and then we go into CVQ training Monday to Friday, Monday to Thursday. Friday is social development day. We teach them to how social development skills, critical thinking, analysis, all of these other things, and we get them out of the classroom to experience the environment. Because when you keep these kids in a four walls every single day, they're not growing, they're not developing. I even said CPEA is not maximizing the potential of our young people. There's so much that we can do and so much that we can address in terms of education that we are not addressing, and our young people are always left behind. Tim, we have individuals with masters coming back to St. Lucia and cannot get a job. And then when they go and study and they do scholarships, they're not getting the experience. So now it's between education and skills. Which one wins in society? Because right now young people are between a rock and a hard place. What do? Go and get all the education and then still come back and cannot get a job, or earn experience to try and get something in life and then work while you're doing your degree. What do? There's no possible way out. Our education system is poor, it's dilapidated, it's outdated, and it's not even functioning to its full extent. We don't even have electronic textbooks in an era where we have smart boards in classrooms all around the world. So it says a lot about us as a nation and where we're putting our priorities.
But why do you think we have not reformed it when there's been so much talk about changing the curriculum, when it has been recognized definitely that we need to make the necessary adjustments so that we could meet the emerging challenges of the 21st century?
But Tim, like you said, it's just talk. Talk. I've sat at some of these forums. All you hearing is talk. Where is the action? Where is the development? Teachers, when you have a class of 164 students, making sure all of them learn, have we created an outline to understand the different types of learners? What are we doing with students with disabilities? I heard a mother, I read on Facebook a mother complained about her child suffers with autism and she was trying to put the child in daycare and they wouldn't take him. I'm going to tell you from a personal experience, Tim. I had a child who was autistic in my class, and this child was brilliant. taught my class every single time. Extremely intelligent, extremely capable. I had a student with dyslexia. I had a student with ADHD. So rather than look at their disabilities, I nurtured my lesson around them. I taught English, and I nurtured the English lesson to make it more practical and have a more societal approach where they can learn but still have fun activities. I told them, let's do a business pitch tank, and I'm going to teach how to public speak, how to write, how to converse, and how to develop yourself. Tim, these kids came with so many ideas. One came in a suit and a bow tie to present an app. Somebody actually created a whole business box and presented it. Who made homemade cookies? Who was selling ice cream? The kids got creative, and you wouldn't know that they had the disability or something was wrong with them because of how you nurture your lesson towards them. And that's something we forget, that the teachers are the backbone of the instruction, but we're not giving them what they need for them to be able to survive. And that's why we lose a lot of good teachers. Our curriculum needs to change. Our whole approach to education needs to change if we want to get them to the next level.
But why do you think the reluctance? I mean, it starts basically with the Ministry of Education, other relevant stakeholders. But what is befuddling is that why no one is taking the lead on that very important issue. What are the stumbling blocks? What is the logjam? What is preventing them from taking the requisite steps?
The question is it important? That's what we must consider. Because all things aside, with all that's happening in the country, is that really a priority to the government at this point in time? You hear about tourism.
But you say this government, but previous administrations as well.
And that's true. We have to hold them accountable.
The same talk. You see this also being included in manifesto after manifesto, but nothing materializes.
And Tim, I'm not going to sit there and act like I'm one-sided. I'm going to hold the United Workers' Party accountable, because these are not things that I have not mentioned even before I got into these positions at the last general elections. And again, this is where I say we cannot forsake our young people, because when you're the Minister of Education, you're still like a Minister of Youth, because these are young, predominantly young people you're dealing with, young teachers who are in the system. So this is now a wake-up call for both Flubbos and Labours to check themselves and understand that the education system is actually the backbone of St. Lucia. The education system does not make money. It's not a money-making ministry. So we have to now figure out how we're going to get the funds, what is the short-term, medium-term, and long-term development and investment into the education system, and how can we start to modernize our curriculum before we start modernizing our infrastructure. So that way everything aligns. Let's say, for instance, we want to do housing projects for young people. Students who are studying agriculture can now sell their crops. If we invest in agriculture development, they sell their crops and they get some change. You can utilize that into a fund that allows them to acquire land. So as they go throughout their young lives working in our economy, some of that can go towards them acquiring land. You have a housing development project for young people. So now they understand the importance of agriculture, they understand the importance of home ownership, and we don't put them in debt to go and study or anything like that, so they can start off their lives on good terms. Things like that we need to figure out. How we're incorporating digital integration like coding and things into our IT system, IT rhetoric and IT curriculum for our young people to make sure they're up to par. I've seen kids hack GTA to get everything. If you can hack GTA, then I'm pretty sure you can do coding and all the necessities for you to be able to function in the IT sector. And I know there's a young man who's making up to $6,000 US a month, and he was self-taught in coding. Imagine what we can do for our young people and expand their knowledge working remotely and being able to make that money. So we're not doing enough.
What about the fact that there's so much emphasis on the academic achievement of students and which school they attend, secondary school in particular? Some schools are seen more prestigious than others, and the fact that there isn't sufficient skills training taking place among students who are not so academically inclined.
Tim, I'm going to tell the nation honestly, I went to Vidbute Secondary School, I went to South Louis Community College, A-level. I've been a president of the National Students Council. I've been on the National Youth Council, District Youth and Sports Council, and guess what? I'm sitting here as a young political advocate. It doesn't matter the school you go to. Everybody's doing the same CXC at the end of the day. We place emphasis on these institutions, giving credibility to them. I'm telling you right now, don't have this illusion, because there are kids who go to these higher schools who still cannot spell or read properly or write properly or do anything properly. It's just an illusion that we have in our minds in believing that if I send my child to this school or that school, they're better off. No, what's better off is your child's mental development and their capacity to learn. Tim, if I wanted to do something actively in my childhood, you know what my mom would do? She'll give me a word search. So on any long trip I was on, she would give me a word search and she would tell me find the words and then look up the meaning for those words. I used to have a speech impediment where I couldn't pronounce S's. That went away. My academic development did not happen just in school. It happened at home when my parents took extra time to develop that academic skill for me, that I was ahead of many of my classes. So this emphasis you have on thinking if you send your child to convent and you're living in Viewfort or Castries, that's an illusion. Children can succeed no matter where they are. The question is, are you investing in them for them to succeed and providing adequate resources? And I know we as teachers now, well, I'm a former teacher, but as teachers, we will invest in them with you. So we need to have that partnership where we can help this child grow through whatever stage that they are in. So again, don't let this fool you. Your kids all take the same English, the same math, the same geo, the same bio exams at the end of the day. You're just being fooled by a uniform or concept that is so outdated that it has become the defining factor of if a child will do well in life. That's
But you mentioned a very important point, is that the role of parents. Normally people leave the nurturing of students and imparting of knowledge to their children, to the school, to the teacher, to the education system. So you're saying there's a greater responsibility for parents?
Of course, Tim. I mean, if you're teaching about 200 students a day, how are you expected to give them one-on-one lesson when an average class period is about 30 to 45 minutes? You don't have that adequate time to work with these students one-on-one. That's why we need the parents' help. Contact, say, ma'am, do you have work for the students that they can work on? I would love if a parent said, Mr. Harrow, I want to help my child at home with some writing and some essays. Can you give me a topic? I will gladly give you a picture of my scheme book and send that to you.
What about instances where parents cannot help because they themselves, you know, are just definitely in need of tuition?
Well, we as teachers, after school programs, there's lessons planned, there's stuff that we can do, there's links that we can also send for both you and the child to learn at home through YouTube. YouTube is the biggest teacher, is the biggest classroom in the world. There's no limitation or no excuse to somebody learning except if you are willing to learn. And if you are an educator, you are willing to teach and to also be taught, because information is always expanding. So if a parent may not be able to work with that child because they may not have the knowledge or the skill necessary to work with that child, you can come to the teacher, come to the school, go to the ministry. There is some level of allocation that can be made for that. And if there is none, then it says a lot about your leadership system here in society. It says a lot.
You're very passionate about education. This comes across. But if you were Minister of Education tomorrow, what would be the priority for you, the main priority?
My curriculum. That's the first priority. Infrastructure, I know it's essential right now, but it's a lot of money. First, we need to fix what we can fix, and that's the curriculum in general. Because I'm not going to lie to him, I saw the English curriculum at one point in time, and I just tilted my head. My Form 1s and my Form 2s are doing the same work. My Form 3s, Form 4s, and Form 5s are doing the exact same thing. How am I modernizing that curriculum to meet today's standards in terms of CV development, in terms of actual subject-verb agreement, in terms of understanding different writing styles and how to approach things? Because how you write is how you view the world, your perception of reality. And nowadays, a lot of the modern kids don't have any imagination. I'm not going to lie about it. Tim, I'm going to joke. When I did CXC, I wrote about Pokemon. Swear to you, I got a 1. I wrote about Pokemon because it was in my imagination. I'm an imaginative person. So when you design an English curriculum, you have to design it according to the world's standards. We cannot get rid of AI. I'm going to be honest with you, it's there. But we have to learn to encompass it into our lesson plans. And I mentioned that at one point on a Flubbo platform, and somebody said that I'm talking magie. I find it ironic that person said I was talking magie, was a labor hack, but then the labor minister was at a conference with former education minister Gail Rigobert about integrating AI into the education system. So I hope that person got a rare wake-up call and understood I was speaking some logic there. I'm passionate about my curriculum. It doesn't take much to sit down with the heads of these curriculums and draft out proper policies and proper educational curriculum that meets the mandates of the world. Once you can start doing that, everything will now start to fall in place in terms of CVQ training, skills development workshops for our young people. So when they leave, they have CXCs, they have CVQs, they have social development skills, they have analytical skills, and they can now go out and be actually productive people and not sit there and wait. They can develop entrepreneurship goals and develop businesses and so much more than just always waiting and relying on CXC for their development.
You mentioned AI. Do you think that we're paying sufficient attention to it and the fact that it is here to stay?
I think we need to pay a lot more attention to it. AI can be used in so many different ways in terms of vocal manipulation.
For both good and bad.
For both good and bad. Even in elections, it can tamper in elections, and we have to be alert to that, because AI you can hear a message from Alan Chasney and it's not Alan Chasney, and that can dissuade voters. So we have to be very careful with this AI tool and how it's being utilized. You have to look at all avenues. You cannot dismiss it completely, because it's technology. It's here to stay for the longest time. But how are we encompassing that into our educational system? How are we encompassing that into our life? Every smartphone, you have Siri, you have Alexa, you have Hey Google, you have all of that. You cannot get rid of it, but you need to know how to live with it. And that's something that we as leaders, SLP, UW, PLPM, NGP, whatever, need to sit down and say how we're going to embrace this with our youth and our elders and incorporate that into our technological systems.
You talk about the negative aspect of AI and how it can be manipulated. In terms of the upcoming general election, I have no doubt it will be utilized, because I think even earlier today I realized in some other program that it is being utilized. Do you think we need a code of conduct as to the utilization of AI in the upcoming general elections?
Yes,
so
I
that
think
people are not being misled and taken advantage of. People are not so savvy as far as the technology is concerned.
I hope that there was a process in the beginning of deliberations on the regularization of AI within our system. We must regulate this. We must create a code of conduct that both parties will agree to ensure that this is a fair election, because like you said, I've realized voice notes and all other things are going around utilizing people's voices, that and it's not even true, but it gets people so hot and bothered. They either say I'm not voting, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. So we need to be fair in this approach of the election. And anybody found tampering with it will cost them their seat. We need to hold them to the highest punishment level to make sure that this is not utilized and no misinformation and no propaganda is being spewed, or nobody's voice or identity is being manipulated to carry a message.
This is Newsmaker Live on DBS Television. My guest is Mr. Joshua Harrow. When we come back, I'll be hearing from you. We'll be putting the telephone number on screen, and then you'll be able to call and interact with my guest. Stay with us.
Every dream begins with a spark, a moment where determination ignites the impossible. Through every long night, every setback, every ounce of pain, they push through with passion, reaching beyond their own limits. And now the spotlight shines, their achievements are shared. We honor every dream, every challenge, every triumph of every sports contributor in St. Lucia. We celebrate our champions of sports. Join us live at 7 p.m. on February 15th for the 43rd National Sports Awards. Do for us some health and well-being for a prosperous nation.
Television airtime? Are you spending more than you planned or getting poor results because your ad dollar did not go very far? Advertising with DBS, the #1 station, allows you to set your budget and get targeted airtime to fit your business and your customers. Plus, targeted airtime gets you the most for your advertising dollar. Don't scatter your TV advertising budget. Target your ads. Your customers are watching. Call DBS at 453-2705 and let's talk.
Thank you so much for staying with the broadcast. Once again, you're watching Newsmaker Live on DBS Television. We'll put the telephone number on screen right now so that you can call with your questions and comments for my guest. Once again, he is Joshua Harrow, and he is a youth political activist who is aligned to the United Workers' Party. Why the United Workers' Party? Why not be aligned to the St. Lucia Labour Party?
Well, I think I made my choice due to the fact of my own personal experience with the Labour Party. I remember even as a youth leader when I was a student council member, I remember then was Robert Lewis, who was the education minister.
My apologies to you. Hold that point. We have our first call. Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening to you, caller. Go ahead with your contribution, please.
Good night, Tim, and good night to your guest.
Good evening to you, caller.
Good night, caller.
Well, Tim, you'll never believe it. That question you just asked there was one I was going to ask the young gentleman there. Why the throw his weight behind the UWP and not the Labour Party, and he was in the process of answering. So perhaps, sir, you can proceed with answering, and then I'll stay on the line, and then we can, just do a quick little follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll stay on the line.
Yes,
Go ahead,
thank you, caller. Now, I've chosen the United Workers' Party due to my own personal experience with the Labour Party at the time. Like I've said, I've expressed my views when we were young leaders going to a conference at Big Gardens, and then Minister of Health, Alvina Reynolds, we were hoping that she would have stayed there to listen to us, and we hadn't seen our minister for 2 days. I've gone through conferences with the then Minister of Education, Robert Lewis, and he showed that he did not want to listen to us, or when we asked questions, he was very dismissive on the matter. So, and there are several more instances like that. These are just a few. So it led me to believe that these individuals did not care. Now, the United Workers' Party was a bit different because I was embraced. I was embraced by Auntie Gail when I was hosting sports awards, and at the time it was at Convent. Not sports awards, youth sports awards, school sports awards, and I was embraced. Now, yes, people will question why did I choose, but it's from my personal experience that I was embraced by one party but not listened to by the next. And when I realized that I'm not being listened to by the next as an ordinary person, then why would I want to go and show alliance to that party when another one has embraced me from way back, even before I got as high up in the party as I am now, and showed me support and still stayed in contact and see how I was doing. So if they show me that love and support, why would I not go to them? And that is why I chose them instead.
Yes, caller.
Okay, fair enough. Now, so
go ahead, caller, please.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, that makes sense. But here's what. I think your decision, you have a right to choose where now you want to go. However, would not be sacrificing certain things. For example, the track record. Yeah, you are going where you are more love is given to you. You are more, acceptance and all of that. But then what about the track records of both parties? That's one. And then number two, earlier on in the interview, you indicated that youth, all right, accountability. Let's focus on that. Accountability is one of the reasons why the Castries Central candidate was that you were supporting and throwing all your support behind that particular candidate because you believe in accountability. So, but it sounded to me like there isn't that much weight in terms of the numbers of people who are willing, who are right now standing, to hold and take the incumbents, hold them to accountability, hold them accountable is what I'm really trying to say. You mentioned one or two other persons, but that sounded like a very dismal minority. So in terms of the reality, accountability is something is that you need, don't you need this to come from a whole lot more cross-section of the populace, the citizenry, for it to be effective.
Thank you so much for calling, sir.
So basically that's what I wanted to say.
I appreciate the contribution. Yeah.
So when I said about accountability, I use myself as a reference, but like I said, we're all, and I even mentioned that we as citizens, we as parliamentarians must hold them accountable. We as the community must hold them accountable in their actions. If we don't, then they're going to slip up. So it's not just me, it is an entire constituency.
Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air. Okay, we'll have that call once again. My guest this evening is Mr. Joshua Harrow. Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Good evening, Tim, and good evening to your guest, Mr. Harrow.
Good evening to you, caller.
Yes.
Mr. Harrow, I want to commend you and to compliment you on your questions, not your questions, sorry, your answers. I want to say to you that you're on the right track, and that you chose the right political party in the United Workers' Party, because the United Workers' Party has always been a party for the young people. It was the United Workers' Party, and I'm bringing you back to memory lane. It was the United Workers' Party who instituted the National Youth Council. It was the United Workers' Party who started, or who gave the National Youth Council its subvention so that they can do the different programs and to advance the agenda of young people. I want you to just a question quickly. As a young person, how would you grade this current Labour Party government on its performance? How would you grade the St. Lucia Labour Party based on its current performance? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much.
If I were to give a grade, like a teacher, I would give a grade, I would say 50%. Now, people would say that's halfway, that seems high. 50 is still a fail, whether you like to admit it or not. And the reason that I'm saying 50% for them is because and again, I'm going to give Jack his jacket, whereas I give Philip his badge for creating the youth economy. Good job creating opportunities for young people. I'm not going to sit there and act like, it wasn't a good initiative. But when we look at economy is currency. Currency moves, changes over time. And if we understand that how our young people are developing, they're missing the youth component of the development of the youth economy. They're missing the youth component of the development of St. Lucia. So that's why I put it at 50%. When I see proper youth development and I see proper youth action happening, then I'll give it a score a little higher.
Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Yes, sir. How are you doing? I just want to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. Your guest is Mr. Harrow, right?
Yes.
Mr. Harrow, I see you speak very well.
Thank you, caller.
But I caught a couple of deficiencies in your presentation tonight. Mm-hmm. I'm going to point out to you and ask you a personal question. Mm-hmm. You speak about Rush very highly, and you said you'd aside in case he make a mistake to straighten him out or something. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned him. You spoke very well of him. But you spoke about the person that is going up against, which is, and you refer to him as El Guapo. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, if you presenting yourself to be an example, and you're saying you're going to straighten out somebody, the El Guapo you mentioned in there, he's a minister in government, and he has a position. If you were in a position that was somebody was talking about you just like you're doing now, would you like the person to call you El Guapo? He's a minister and he has a name. Don't you think that was improper?
Caller, do you also not think improper that same candidate has reached on the mother of that candidate, potential candidate?
That's not what I'm talking about, sir. I'm talking about just like Mr.
Caller.
Hold on, caller. But he's answering you. Allow him to answer.
You have to be fair, because you cannot do what you're doing and you don't expect the response back. If you are a sitting minister, you should not be pointing out people's personally on your show. You should not be going after people's families. You should not be harassing people in that manner. So if you see that response happening, well, to every action comes an opposite and equal reaction, and the reaction is opposite or equal to what he is doing. So I believe that the action is justifiable because he is not acting as a minister. If you are not acting as a minister, you should not be treated as a minister, and it is that simple, caller. Thank you.
No, but what I'm saying, sir, that is out of respect. The man has a name. You understand what I'm saying? And you would like to be addressed regardless of what people may say about you, or if you were on the other side. That doesn't mean I'm supporting the side. But what I'm saying, you come in and the viewers are listening to you, and you want to respect you, and we expect you to come with respect to his position, regardless of what you may think about him. I think that's the right thing to do. Okay. So what I'm saying is, you're out of place to be calling a man El Guapo. You know what I'm saying? Right thing to do.
Caller, respect.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your point of view, sir.
Earned, not given. You earn respect. And until that member can give respect to everyone, then not everyone is going to respect him. Simple.
Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Good night, sir.
Hi, good night to you, caller.
I'm impressed with Mr. Harrow. Good night to Mr. Harrow and team as well.
Good evening to you, caller.
Yes.
Mr. Harrow spoke highly on education and academics. Mr. Harrow, why do you believe that the ministry, the government, has transformed 4 secondary schools into TVET schools, into TVET?
Caller, I am aware of the transformation of these institutions into technical...
I listen to you on the TV.
Thank you so much.
So, caller, I'm aware of the technical vocational educational institutions that are transpiring right now. But again, like I said, yes, government has taken some action, but it is still not fully enough to develop our young people to meet the modern capacity. Remember that St. Lucia's education system is decades behind the US, and that is still decades behind the rest of the world. So as much as the government may take this action, is it coming fully into fruition and actually getting them to that modernized standard?
Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yeah, Tim, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Good evening to your guest, Mr. Harrow.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Harrow, one on the point of correction. Philip JP, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, did not create the youth economy. He found it, you say he try and enhance it, but the youth economy is a mess. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for calling. Once again, we continue with your calls for my guest, Mr. Joshua Harrow, right here on the program Newsmaker Live on DBS Television. I think, Leon, you were making a point about something before we got interrupted by a call. But let's focus on the what the caller referenced, the one before the last about the mud slinging. Do you think it's a time for us to get away from that kind of action? But we have a call. Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air. Hello?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
And good evening to your guest.
Yes,
I just heard your guest answer to the question of the TVET. These are schools that are just developed. It will take time for any institution or any situation like that to really come to fruition. So it's a matter of time. Now, when he also, are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, right. So when you talk about the St. Lucia Labour Party not doing anything for the youth, I want to remind him it was the Labour Party government who stopped a 22-year shift system under the United Workers' Party by building enough primary schools so that St. Lucia children could go to school in the morning and in the afternoon. Right? It was the St. Lucia Labour Party who did that. It was the St. Lucia Labour Party who created enough secondary schools so that you could have secondary education, universal secondary education. And when you look at the number of our students that are now going to secondary school, that are now going to universities, right? The different universities, whether it's in Mexico, whether it's in Taiwan, whether it's all over the world, that they have created those opportunities for our youngsters to educate themselves. Let's not forget, I always say, we cannot even thank Cuba enough. And to look at the number of doctors that we are training in Cuba, nurses, and it was the Labour Party again who did that, established diplomatic relations with Cuba, right? To have the number of St. Lucians who are now doctors. Some of them I know were poor people. They couldn't afford to go to a university to become doctors. Today they are doing very well economically and so on. You know, and I've moved on, the entire family benefiting from that. You see it? So we can go on and on that level. You know, but again, I also want to come to the point that you made about why you joined the United Workers' Party. And it is clear that the bar is lower. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when you look at the caliber of people that is the United Work, in the St. Lucia Labour Party that are representing the Labour Party, it will make it very difficult for you to become a candidate. You know, and again, I have to go back to the point that you made about calling the gentleman.
The guest did not make reference to being a candidate. He told you why he's aligned to the United Workers Party.
Well, why he's aligned to the party? And I'm going back to the point that you made.
The same way, you have your right. You have your right and your reasons as to why you are aligned to the St. Lucia Labour Party, caller. Right?
Okay, yes, that's the point. That's the fact. But I'm also going back to the point that the way he disrespected a sitting minister, you're attacking the minister personally, calling him all kinds of names, and he's not supposed to respond. He's not supposed to defend himself. That's what you're saying to me. And what you have to find out, right? Whether he mentioned your candidate's mother's name, did he say anything that was untrue?
What are you talking about?
I'm saying to you, he said that when he insulted the minister and said that the minister mentioned.
You spoke about the candidate's mother's name.
Right.
What about?
I'm saying to you, did the minister lie in what you said?
What did he say that he did not lie? What did he say?
No, but I'm not going to that. I'm not going to the point. The point of asking, did the minister lie on the candidate's mother?
Caller, what did he say?
I don't remember the context of the conversation.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for calling. But you want to react?
Number one, I will leave that for Mr. Roche Clark to debate that, because he responded adequately when Richard said what he said, and you can go back and watch Can I Help You? And number two, I have all right to choose what side I want to choose. So you cannot tell me my validation as a candidate on whichever side. That is determined by their political leaders. So I think some people's ignorance is outweighing their intelligence.
Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yeah, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
I've never watched. I've watched your program many times before, and tonight I got home and I came on the channel when I was watching. And like a couple of the callers said, I was very impressed with the young man and how he's articulating himself and in his delivery and whatnot. But then his response to the gentleman who said to him that he didn't like the manner in which he referred to the minister, I was very disappointed with his response. I thought it was very shallow. You know, like Michelle Obama said, when they go low, you go high. And he was an ex-teacher. So you're telling me that if your two students are brought before you and they have a big argument or whatnot and they're ready to fight and with each other because one calls one a makume and the other one says to the other one, oh, Senabula, two wrongs don't make a right. And I don't see you sort of lost my respect on that response, because you can't tell me because he's gone low you're going to go low also. Or you, as Tim just said a while ago, what do you think about mudslinging and whatnot? That if they mudslinging, that you're going to mudsling also. And if the minister is not earning respect, he's not going to get respect. I was very disappointed with that response, young man, honestly. Okay.
All right.
I think that you don't have to go into the gutters if they go into the gutters also, if that's how you think. Okay.
Thank you so much for calling, sir. Thank you.
We're not going to go into the gutter, and we're not going to entertain any rhetoric that is happening in terms of playing this notion. But you have to understand that to everything there's an opposite and equal reaction. You cannot expect someone to get disrespected, get bashed, somebody to reach on their family, and they do not respond. You may not have liked my approach, and that is understandable. There's multiple ways to view for, there's multiple ways to approach anything. But I believe that if you are a person who are in leadership and you are taking a position where you must stand and advocate, you must set the example. And if you continue to attack those who want to make a change and those who have a voice and those who have played by the books and not attacked you, and you expect them not to respond, that's not going to be likely, caller. Honestly, I understand where you come from, and thank you for that contribution, and I will take that into heart in my approach in terms of this political agenda. But as of now, we must take a stand and show that we will not be pushed, because it's being bullied, and we've seen it happen several times, so we have to address this. But thank you for your contribution, caller. I do take it to heart, yes.
Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you, caller.
Good evening to your guest. First of all, I would like to say, in terms of the young aspiring politicians, both Mr. Harrow and Mr. and Rush, I am definitely very impressed with them wanting to come into the political arena. While one of your callers, a few callers back, brought into the picture the mudslinging, and it is definitely something I would like to encourage both himself and Mr. Rush as young aspiring leaders, upcoming leaders. We need to turn the page. We need to turn the page. And while I understand the fact that the current minister is being disrespectful, like one of the callers also mentioned, we need to start raising the bar. We can't continue that cycle to perpetuate the mudslinging in politics. This is why the politics is being stained as it is, and young people like them are staying away from the politics. So I definitely would like to see, especially young aspiring politicians, out of the mudslinging, stick to the facts, refer to people as whatever they are. Yes, I think definitely this current minister is not fit or serving his job as a minister with any kind of high regard, So I think he should, reconsider that and let us try to move forward. I think definitely these two young men have a lot of potential. So let's keep on the positive direction. Our country is going in a direction that's not very positive, and we need to start moving in a positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you, caller. And that is the entire aim of us as young people. We want to move in the direction of positivity. We have taken the clean approach. We have taken the clean route for the last year plus. We have been doing everything by the books. And you've been hit hard when your family, your personal life, everything is attacked and rumors and allegations are happening and is on you. So automatically you are going to respond to stand up for yourself and show them that you can fight back. Because as much as you're pushing the agenda of positivity, sometimes you have to remind people that you can fight back and you will fight back. So let's keep this respectful. So we just have to send a little reminder just to show that we can fight back, but we're not going to go into details, and we will continue to push forward as prospective individuals in leadership and continue on that path of righteousness.
Good evening. Thanks for holding on. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yeah, Tim, how you doing?
I'm okay, caller. Good evening to you.
Good evening to your guest. Tim, you know what gets me very angry with this hypocrisy? Everybody dashing on the young gentleman for calling the minister, whatever name he called. Not saying he's right, but what I'm saying, those politicians have been calling people names and insulting people, women, and I don't hear these fellas coming out and condemn these type of names calling. And I don't know, we think sometimes we are better than Jesus Christ. When Jesus went and faced those politicians that was doing wickedness and all sorts of things, misleading people, you know what he called them? He didn't call Mr. Pharisees, he said, you generators of vipers, you are worse than a serpent and so on. He called them this type of men. Now, if all these guys that's coming out and condemn as the guy called the minister that type of name, it would be a better solution. But it's only one side. People insulting women, insulting the dead, all sorts of things, and nobody is coming out and speak against the same. That's why we are in that state in this country. They call you thin, short, white, yellow, 2-inch. Call that other minister I heard sometimes. I don't really listen to news on Sunday days. All sorts of them. We don't have to be coming out and condemn those type of things. We all are human beings. I'd rather be shot like Tim or shot like that other guy than to be like of these politicians. 1 billion trillion times. Thanks very much, Tim.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for calling. Another call. Good evening. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening to you, caller.
I'm just circling back a little bit to, having watched some of the exchanges in terms of callers and this whole idea of respectability. And it seems to me that, if there's going to be any constructive change in the political climate and candidacy for this country, that there has to be emphasis placed on, we talked about it earlier, accountability, rather than the mudslinging. Because no matter who you are, no matter what your condition, your disability, it seems to me that substance overrides, the mudslinging. So in other words, if a politician is held to account, okay, you use your holding a politician to account as the means to dismantle that politician if they're not performing. The mudslinging is cheap stuff. So, I mean, not to belabor a dead horse, but I don't think it's the right way to go, Mr. Harrow, to be following, and there was one particular caller who really, put it very, very, well, in terms of you have two students, one is calling this one that, the other one is calling that. What would you do? Would you encourage that kind of behavior? How constructive is that? This is not how you earn respect. This is not how you progress and you build. That's more destructive, and that's more toxic, more toxicity, as they say. So I think what is needed, and I'd like to see you, as much as we may not be aligned in the same political ilk, but I'd like to see that change be made in terms of the accountability, performance. That's what's more important. That's where the substance is, not in mudslinging. Mudslinging is drama. You understand? It's just engaging in a lot of ruru, as we say in the vernacular, and that sort of thing. And that's not the kind of politics we want to promote. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for calling. We have sufficient time to take at least 2 more calls. Good evening to you. Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yeah. Good evening.
Yes, sir. Good evening to you, caller.
Mr. Harrow. I joined late. It's nice to see young persons in politics. The country must be led. We have the Westminster system, you have the opposition, and you have the ruling party. So he spoke well, very articulate. He seems to have good understanding of what he wants to do. But I follow him. He said the reason why he joined the European and his progressive, 100% no problem with that, because they embraced him. But I thought he would go on and say, well, he likes the policies and the vision statement, because a lot of people embrace people sometimes. Boiling eyes hungry, but if you're hungry, somebody give you food. And a lot of this happens when they get a youth and then somebody give you some food, some money, and they have loyalty to that person, they let them kill for that person, you understand? So I'm not saying agreement. I thought you go a little deeper and say that he likes the mission statement of the policy of Europe. But it's nice that he can come. A lot of people, 10 times if you never come on TV, they'll talk about it's a bold move, it's a courageous move, and he's like a gold mine, an oil field to be explored. Trained and led, I think, is a good prospect for the future. In regards to our party, he has good potential. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So, caller, as it pertains to that, we don't have much time on this show, so I cannot go into all the details. I mean, I'm also one of the people helping to put policies and manifestos in place, so I do add my ideas, but you will hear that when we have our official launch, and the political leader will do that. As it pertains to the caller before who indicated if that is what I'm going to teach or replicate to my kids, first of all, you don't teach disrespect, you handle it very well, and you teach people realistically how things are. You treat others the way you want to be treated, and when you don't treat others the way you want to be treated, what happens is they're going to treat you exactly how you treat them. So if you continue to be a bully in society, call names, call out women, do all of these different things, you expect me as a young person to sit idly by and allow you to disrespect people? No, you're going to take a stand too. You're going to take a stand for the young people who's been victimized in your party, and you're going to take a stand for the young people in the nation who's been victimized by them. So it's very nice that the prepositions members are calling in and saying what they have to say. That's very good. You're paying attention because you now understand that the United Workers' Party has a young person who's taking a stand with fire and fury in their soul.
We have our final call. Good evening, Newsmaker Live, you're on the air.
Yes, I just want to say that the German state spoke very well, but the thing is, I believe that he could actually uplift me but a little bit at the end I felt that he kind of way dropped me. But he's speaking very well, but the problem is not the minister. The problem is there are people of St. Lucia, especially those that work for government. Nobody does the work, and that's the problem, especially in the schools. The teachers may be frustrated, they're not doing the work because maybe they're not getting the right tools. And that's that thing with Mr. Chapo or whatever. Big man, I don't think you should go down that road. I mean, you're bigger than that, and keep up the good work, but always remember you're bigger than that. Do not be like them, okay? Mr. Jeremiah came there and he's done going down the wrong road already, so I don't think you do the same, okay?
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you, caller. I don't plan to go down that road. I always plan to take a higher path, but I also believe that sometimes when you turn your back on some people, they believe that you're easy and you're fragile and they'll target you. I'm not going to be a target, and I'm not going to be falling into this nonsense, but you have to remind some people who you are and where you stand. And as to it pertains to people not doing their work, there are a lot of members who are working hard in the government of St. Lucia who are pushing work, but again, it comes down to affiliation, victimization, and all of these other things that emerge. Do they have access to proper resources? Do they have access to the fundamental things needed to get the lessons done? Do they have access to the necessary equipment to empower and uplift the students? Do they have what it is necessary to get the work done efficiently? And we always realize there's major delays when it comes to development, in terms of programs, in terms of acquiring equipment to facilitate lesson learning, all of these different things. And as pertains to the El Guapo, I'll allow Mr. Clark to tell you really what it is.
Final comments from you, sir?
People there but understand that you come after me about this remark, but you forget that you have a person who goes on air who judges by the skin color, by the race, ethnicity, and all of that went on the whole person's family history and everything like that. So why don't you call and chastise him and call his show and chastise him for that same disrespect he's given? But you come and chastise a young person, believe that that young person is going to sit down and allow that to happen. So it means that if you're calling, then I'm hitting you hard and I'm hitting some points, because if you're not willing to give clarity to the member who's on air saying the same things about the prospective candidates, but you can call here, it shows that there's a level of hypocrisy that exists that is so unfair and so unbiased that you're willing to come and harass a young people than a gentleman who's much older than me and has been doing this for over 20 years, disrespecting individuals. So I think that some of you may need some clarity and some awareness before you actually call to create these allegations about me. Yes, I'm bigger than that, I'm stronger than that, and I'm more powerful than that, but I will never allow myself to fall below those standards. But I will stand upon principle and belief and not or if they're new, stand
and for that peaked.